Good morning, all. Okay, I like that intro song. I'm so glad I found it the other day and we kind of redid that waiting splash screen stuff. That being said, too, the graphic I've been using for the stream was ChatGPT generated, and it's really starting to bug me. So I've been trying to work on a new one that I can use that I've actually created myself. So hopefully I'll have that soon. So let's see here. Welcome. Good morning. I hope everybody has their coffee or wherever time it is, wherever drink you're going to drink. We'll see if my voice can hold out today or not. That should be fun. Let me make sure I have audio here. Yep. Okay, good. I have audio. It's my biggest fear because I can't tell you how many times now I've done streams and I've totally forgotten the audio. So let's hop on over here into where do we want to start? Let's start with yeah. Let's start with our OneNote. Let's see where we are. So we're on milestone 3. Yesterday we were able to get all the combat mechanics going. So we got the dice. We made the dice pool, the attack defense. We have a compare results. That's very simple. Just attack and defend. We don't have anything else going on yet. So today we want to work on the monster AI enemy decision engine. I am going to suspect the stream may not be the full 2 hours today. I've already can still feel my voice being a little weak from yesterday. So we'll see how far we can make it. Hot coffee. You know, they say caffeine's probably not good for that. So drinking the hot coffee is probably not going to help much. So we're going to work on a couple things I do want to fix. First, right now, there is we did this in stream 10, I think it was, where we tried to apply the character's script into the orc and had the orc go, and it did not work very well. So what I'd like to kind of do is kind of touch on that again so we can keep those functions, because there's a lot of stuff in there like players keeping track of where they are in the cell, which tile they're on, because we have that position to sell. I think it was the function call. So we kind of want to use that stuff again so the orcs can track where they are. With that, I also have we have a problem right now. So like if I go over to Godot and we run this, let's see, whose turn? Let's skip that. Okay, so right now if I move this rogue, he can stand right on top of an orc. We don't really want that. There's one other thing that I think I saw. I just want to double check. Yeah, we have a disappearing character problem. That one's going to be easy to fix. So we'll fix that one right off. And then we'll fix the overlap. And then what I want to do is move into getting the orcs script working, because we're going to need that movement functionality for the orcs for when we get into the decision engine. And so then they can decide, do I need to move, or am I right next to a player so I can attack them? So we're going to work on that stuff today. So we'll do a couple fixes first. Let's just take a quick look at our yellow errors to make sure there's nothing that's all in the orc. Okay. Orc is declared but never used. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff I know that I'm not using yet because I want to tie that into the GUI. What did we do here? Return result. Oh, because I had pass. We don't need that anymore. That'll get rid of that yellow error. Okay. So without further ado, let's jump right into, first, let's fix the easy thing. Let's fix when they disappear. It's real simple. It's just a YSOR error. So if we come back here, and because now, before we didn't have them under this actors node. So let's just go to the actors node. And I think we have, Z index. We'll just change that to 1. That should fix this problem. So if we end turn here, and then we move up here, we should now stay on top of the tile instead of disappearing behind it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that problem, nice and fixed. Okay, so now what we need to do is we also need to do so that, like right now, we can move move onto the other players. And we don't want to be able to move on top of the other players. We want to be able to say that square is not available. So what we need to do is we need to fix an overlap. We need to check if there's a player there. And if there's a player there, we want to say that you can't move there. You have to select a different square. So let's start with that. So let's go over here. I'm fighting the urge right now to tear out these players and start making an actual player scene. But that is Milestone 4. So I'm going to hold off on doing that until we get into Milestone 4. So for right now, we're going to be able to take a lot of this stuff that we have and reuse it when we get into Milestone 4. So especially like this script stuff, we're going to definitely be able to do that. Okay, let's take out all this stuff because we don't need this anymore. We did that at the end of last session. Let me just see if there's anything else. That we might need this again when we start adding in the orc movement, so I'm not going to delete that yet. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is in the character body, we have our mouse movement. Where is it? Under input? Yeah, here we go. So what we have here is that's the actual move. This is where we have the mouse over and we're drawing the previs. And here's our target cell right here. So let's think about what we want to do. If we want to identify if there's someone in that cell. Attack on Tyler. Good morning. Lurking and working. Working on game dev or working? Because that's why I was late this morning. I had to do some actual real work. So. Okay. Let's see here. What we need to do is we need to figure out if the cell is occupied. So I'm wondering if we do, if target does not equal target cell. So where are we assigning target? Let's take a look at this. If we're moving the mouse, here we go. We are figuring out which cell we're in. If there is no tile data, this is stopping our bug from when we were walking into the void. So then here's where we pick the target cell. Okay. So then what we need to do, if target does not equal target cell. So this is saying if we're not in our own cell, then go through this. So that's probably a good thing to leave because we don't want to target our own cell. So then this is get the point path, slice it up to make sure it's only 6 or whatever their movement is. Show the previs, target cell equals target. Okay, so it's right here. This is where we want to do it because we just want to turn off. There could be some other things you could do. Would be like make the previs stop the space before. The problem I think we're going to run into with that is say, let's go back here and look at our 2D. So say like this cleric wants to move where the barbarian is. If I do this and I click here, it's going to, if we do one space back, then it's going to stop overlapping the wizard or stop overlapping the rogue. And then we'd have to do another check. And it's more complicated than we just say, hey, that's not a valid cell to move to. Choose another cell. So I think in terms of time and commitment into this, if we just say, turn off the previs, there's no points here. You can't move there. So I think if we do that, so let's do, here's the move points we get. So before we even get the move points, I think we need to check the cell. Okay, so let's check to see if occupied. Okay, so then what we need to do is we have a target cell, right? Does that equal target cell? Where are we setting? So here's our target where we're hovering over. What is the target cell? I'm trying to remember what we use this for. Target cell. Oh, we assign it down here. Okay, so we're validating the target first, and then if the target's good, then we assign the target cell. Okay. Okay. Okay, so the target cell should probably be where we currently reside. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, so now we need to check the target. So let's do a var is occupied. Did I spell occupied right? U-P-I-E-D. Is that right? Occupied. I can't spell. Okay, so we're going to say it's false by default. What we want to do, let's do for player in, how do we do this? Get tree, and then it's what? Get group? Get all in group? I'm trying to remember now. Get nodes in group. There we go. Players. Okay, so we want to get that, and then we want to say if player does not equal. No, let's do if player dot current cell equals our target equals target. Okay, so then what we want to do here, we were going to say is occupied. Do I need the is occupied? Let's just break it here. I feel like if we just break it, like we stop calculating, I think this might break because it still might have the previous cells. So I might have to do. So this should stop me from being able to walk on other players. Let's see if that works. So if I move, okay, so that's not let me. Oh, that is let me walk on another player. Okay, so why is that? Okay, that should have been working. Let's see here. If player.current cell equals target, instead of break, how about we just do print occupied? Okay, let's just make sure we're actually hitting this code. Okay, let's just make sure. So if we hit move, boom, boom, occupied, occupied, occupied. Okay, so we are hitting that, but the problem we're doing here is like here. Yeah, okay. So we do need to break and wipe out the move points and stuff like that. So okay, so if current cell equals target, we're going to print occupied. So let's do is occupied. Is occupied equals true. Okay, and then we can break out of, oh, right, because the break here is only breaking out of the for loop. It's not breaking out of the entire if statement. So we're still doing all this stuff. Okay. So we're going to do this, and then we also want to check we want to check the monsters. So let's do here. Let's do for monster. Monster in the group monsters. Okay. And then we want to do monster.current cell. Make sure we don't step on the monsters. Okay. And then we can set is occupied true there. Okay. And then, so then if either of these, so if is occupied, then what we can do here is we can set our move points to blank. So we wipe out, there's no possible way to do that here. We're going to do our path previs dot points. Okay, we're going to empty that out as well. And then we need to make sure, do we still want to set the target cell? I think we still want to set the target cell just for tracking, because if we don't set the target, no. We're not checking against this target cell anywhere, are we? Let's target cell. Let's see. Are we checking? If target equals target cell. So here's our, we define the target cell. We're checking against the target cell here. Then here we assign it and set up. When we set up target cell equals current cell. I feel like we should make that void. You know what? We should probably keep it as... Yeah, we'll just do that. And then here we can do an else if, or an else period. And then we can do all of this. Okay. So now this should, in theory, if there's a player or monster in the square we're trying to move to, it should not work. So let's see. We have our cleric. Okay, so that is... Oh, we didn't define current cell in the orc, did we? No. Okay. Okay. Well, let's just take out the monster for right now. Okay. So this should stop us from... Okay. So this should stop the barbarian from being able to walk onto either of these guys. Nope. 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 But I can walk over here. Okay. Okay, but I can still move on top of the monster, so we need to still check that. Okay. Because current cell, we need a current cell in the monster. This is just for testing. Because again, we're going to try to take this code and put it into the orc. Where is orc? Orc. Actually, do we have... There we go, orc. Current cell. And what did we define these as? Here, we'll just copy these. Copy. Orc. I'll just set those up there. Boom. Oh, we need the monster to define its current cell. So we need the setup. Where is our setup here? Setup. Okay, so if we copy this setup, we'll bring this over to our orc. Okay. We don't need moving. Yeah, we'll leave that in there. Okay, so let's just go back over here. We'll take all of this right here. We'll copy all of this. We'll put that into our orc. There we go. And then we need the position to cell. Position to cell function. Here we go. So we'll need that in our orc. Okay. And then I don't like this. This is not good code because well, it's gonna be in the same tree, so it'll still work, but I don't like that. Oh, our orc doesn't have previs, does it? Orc. Orc. Here we go. We do have previs in the orc. Okay, so we do have all that. That should be fine. Okay, so now if we go back over here, what we break? Okay, so we don't have the... Okay, so now we can't move on to the players. We are still able to move on to the orcs. Why is that not coming back as occupied? Oh, orc. We're not running setup. That's why. Let's borrow our. Where's our ready? Ready. There we go. Copy. Oh, we're not. The ready doesn't have a setup. Okay, so in orc, we'll do a function underscore ready, and then here we'll call setup. And I forget, do we pass anything to setup? We need to pass the A star grid. So we need the grid, and that's going to equal. Do we have that? No, that's defined in the game board, right? Game board. Do we just call it grid? What do we call it here? Let's go back here. How do we define it in the player? Turn cell grid is A star grid. Okay, where do we set up grid? Grid is A star grid there. Grid. Where did we assign the grid? Oh, I know where. When we do this setup, we're calling a setup for the players, I believe. Yeah, right here. For character and player list, character.setup A star grid. Okay, so we're passing the A star grid from the game board. This is, again, just we're doing some brute force text work here, and then we'll just do grid. Is that what we called it? Just grid? What was it called here? It was called A star grid. There we go. Orc. A star grid, and then here we're going to pass in the grid. Okay, so this should now populate the orc onto our grid. So let's double check that. Oop. Helps if I run the right thing. Here we go. Invalid access to A star grid. Why is it not pulling it from the game board? Okay. Let's do this. Copy. Let's change the reference to it. Oh, you know what? This may not work. I do it like that. This may not work because I may have to set this up in the ready function because it might try to pull it in before it actually. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just copy this. We'll just delete this for right now. And then here we can just do grid equals. And then we can assign it to, this is the actor node, this is the game board node, .a star grid. Okay. So if we save that, that should work. There we go. Okay. So now we should not be able to move to these. Okay, so apparently we can. So let's double check. Let's make sure that our oops, where's my game buddy? So let's go back down into our here, and in our monster, let's check what the monster's current cell is. So if we do a print monster current cell, okay. So when we try to do, okay, so if we try to do move here, these are all showing as 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so these are not getting their actual positions when they do the setup. That's why it's not working. Okay, jump back over here. We set up the grid. Current cell equals position to cell, passing in its global position. Okay, why is that not working then? No, we don't need this. We don't need grid equals grid because we're assigning the grid already. Oh, we don't. Do we need the grid at all? We will need the grid, but for right now, we don't need this. So we can just do setup here. Okay. Position cell global position. Okay, well, let's do this. When we set this up, let's print our global position. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing here, and we're going to print our current cell. Okay, so now when we run this, let's see where they're defaulting to. Okay, so they are at 0, 0. Okay, so when these are being added to the board, they're not in their positions. So where are we? We have spawners. Oh, should we just do because this is just stupid testing. Let's do git tree dot create, create timer. We're just going to do a 1 second timer. Okay, let's just say boom, pause. Okay, so now they exist in the right spot. So now this should make it so I can't move. Yeah, I can't move on to them. Boom. I can still move through them, but that's a different problem. But I can't move on top of them. Okay. Okay, so that's the problem we're having, is because that's running on ready. So it's as soon as they're being added. And if I remember right here in the monster spawner, so here we instantiate it. We're adding it. So this right here is when that is happening. So what we need to do, this is going to be a simple fix. We just take this, we take out the setup right there, save that, come back to the monster spawner, we set the global position, we add in, we do the new orc dot setup. Okay, there, boom. So then that should do that. That should set it here. We won't need this timeout anymore. Boom. Okay. So now instantly we should see. Yeah. Okay. There we go. So that's going to be prevent us from being able to move on top of the monsters. Okay. Yay. Perfect. Okay. So now let me think here. How do we want to? So that fixes the overlap. When we move, basically what we need to do is we need to set, as soon as we start moving, we need to set the monster squares to solid in A star. So then when we do the calculation, it won't try to move through those. So where do we call? Is it in the character body? Do we have a move? Start move. If move points is empty, return. This is moving. This is actually moving. So this is after you click. We want to do it before that. So we want, I think it's activate. I think we call activate. Where's our character, our game board? Game board. Here we go. And so when we click move, trying to remember here. When we click the button move, move button. Here we go. Move button. Where do we hitch up the? There we go. Move button. We go straight to actor move. So this then calls combat manager actor move. So we jump into our combat manager. We go to actor move. We check the make sure they have action points, and then we activate. Okay, so in the actor, we call activate. So if we come in here, this is activate. We set the process input to true. Okay, so then here's where we probably want to set up our A star grid to make all of the, actually, we don't want to do it here because our A star grid's going to live on the game board, not in the player. Actually, we're using a local reference, right? We do have a grid here, and we're assigning that here. So we can set that grid to have the monsters be solid points. So let's go back here into activate. And then so what we need to do is we need to do for monster in get tree dot get was it nodes and group? There we go. Monsters. And then what we need to do is we need to take the monster dot current cell. And then we need that current cell to then get set in the A star as solid. So if we go back here, dungeon tile map, where is our script for dungeon tile map? Here we go. Where did we do draw terrain? Where are we adding in solids here? We have a make solid here somewhere. Oh, no, it's not in the tile because, again, remember, this is being controlled by the game board. Separation in church and state and all that fun stuff. Here we go. A-star grid, set solid point, and then the ID is to get the cell, get the U cells. Okay, so this is what we want. Copy. Okay. So if we come back over here, so we have, this is the cell itself, but what we need to do is, what do we call this? Just grid? I think it was just grid. Grid. There we go. Grid dot set point solid. Okay. And then in the set point solid, we need the ID, which is the coordinates, and then whether or not it's true. Okay. So here, the ID here, this becomes the monster cell. Okay. And then we say it is false, right? Yes, false. Be right. Hold on. Set point solid. Disables or enables. By default, all points are enabled. So solid, we want this to be solid, so we want this to be true. Okay. Or do we want it to be false? Solid equals false. Oh, it means you can walk through it. So true. We want this to be solid, bool, true. So we want to make sure that they can't walk through it. So we think back here. Our dungeon tile map, if we say it's walkable, it's true. So we say it's not true if you don't want to be on it. So if it's walkable, it's true, it becomes false. That means you can walk on it. True means you can't. Okay, so yeah, this is right. Okay, so that's what we do here. Okay. And then in the deactivate process, we're going to go through it again, but we're just going to flip it around. And the reason we're going to do this is because we don't want to keep that reference in there when the monsters move, because then we're going to have a solid block that we can no longer move on. So if we do a debug and we do navigation, this should show us when we, whoops, also if I run the right scene. So here's our navigation. Everything's good. And we hit move. Oh, well, we got to get off there. There we go. Move. And then that, yep. So this, we can't walk through them. Let's get a few tiles here so that we can kind of see more navigation. Oops. Let's try this one more time. Okay. End turn. We'll do that. Whose turn is it now? That guy's turn. We'll move up to here. We'll get this tile. Orc, skip. We'll move him to, say, here. Now, if we want to move to here, it should move us up and around. Yep. There we go. Okay. Yep. Okay, so now we're avoiding the monsters. Okay, perfect. Okay. So when we move this into... Let's double check something. I want to just double check one more thing. So we enter in here. Okay, so we're going to move him down to... So like right now, I can get to here. So now if I attack and kill this guy... Did I do something? What did I do wrong here? What's happening? If I move him, okay, player 2, attack. Oh, what did we mess up on? How'd I break things by doing this? Actor attack. Valid access to property or key targeted on character. Oh, because we didn't carry over that value, did we? Targeted. We did not, I believe. Let's go back to our... Oh, where is it over here? GitHub. When we, in our orc, we took out already targeted. Yeah, let's add that back in. There we go. Okay, now let's do this again. Okay, so, whoops. Okay, so not an orc. Okay, so we're going to move him down to here. He goes around. We're going to attack this orc right here. And we're going to kill him. Now we should be able to move into that square. Yes. Okay. Okay. So that works. Perfect. Okay. That is a... okay. We'll come back to that. That's a... Excuse me. That's a concern for when we start doing the monster movement. Okay. Okay. So let's... Oh, crap. You know what? I forgot to hit... start our time tracker. So let's see here. It is 10:52. We started... I'm just going to call it 10:15. I'll say 10:20 because we did a little talking at the beginning. So let's go back over to our dashboard. And let's... Sessions. Let's add a manual session. Let's see. Today at 10:20. Oops, there we go. 10:20. And then we'll say 10:53 is right now. Perfect. That's fine. We'll save that. We'll do bug walk fixes. There we go. Save. Okay. And now we'll start our actual timer. There we go. So now if we come back here, we should have our, 22.5. Okay. My bad. I totally forgot about that. Okay, so let's look here. Let's look at this. We need to actually build the decision engine, and then we need to work on the other stuff. Okay. Sorry, slightly scatterbrained. I was hoping to get everything like all planned out with my pen and paper and just go, okay, this is what we need to get all this stuff working. And I was hoping to get it all planned out, and I didn't quite get there this morning. Work took a little distraction from me. Okay, so let's get into... I want to jump right into making the decision engine, or do I want to... Let's just jump right into the decision engine. Let's do that right now. So let's go to the orc. We're going to work on him here. We're going to create a new... what's it called? A class. We're going to create a new node type here for it. So let's see. Let's do it as... let's just do it as a generic node. That should be fine. So let's just do it as a node. And we're going to call it a EC decision engine. ENGINE. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's attach our script to it. just be a node, class name, decision engine. Okay, because we're going to use this for our other NPCs. So when we add in our crossbow orc, our spellcasting orc, our sword wielding orc, I don't remember what they all are. I think we purposely skipped spellcast and orcs just to kind of simplify it. But the different types of orcs that we're going to have, each of them are going to have a unique decision, especially like if they have a ranged weapon, they're not going to move to point blank and shoot their bow. They're going to stay back as long as they're within bow range. So we got this. Let's do a what we want. Let's break this down. Let's go through how we want this to happen. So let's start here. We want to we need to trigger it. Trigger AI process. I've seen a lot of talk on the internet too. They don't want to call it monster AI anymore because all the other AI stuff out there has such negative connotations. So they're calling it monster logic and stuff. You know what? Let's do that. Let's call it trigger monster logic. Let's jump on board that bandwagon. Why not? So we're going to trigger the monster logic, and then what we need to do is the monster needs to know where all the players are. So let's locate all players so we can figure out where they are. Again, we're building this as a board game. We're not thinking of this as, hey, break line of sight. You know, the monster can't see me. He can't think properly. I mean, you're sitting down at a table playing a board game. You can see the entire board. I mean, that's how it is. When, you play Hero Quest and whoever's playing Zargon or the Dungeon Master, whatever you want to call it, he can see everything and he's going to make, meta choices on what the monsters are going to do because he can see the whole board. So we're just kind of keep with that. So then we need to look at our players. We need to look at our options. So we got all of our players. We're going to store that. So we want to call it load list. Let's see. Let's think about this. No, we're just going to step through list. Step through decision list. Okay. And then, so if decision one, it's just going to be an if-then thing. If this condition is true, trigger this action. If not, go to the next one. And should we do that as a dictionary? Should we do that as an array? It might be beneficial to do it as an array because then we can just do, can we do an array of dictionaries? That might actually work. Then we can just go 0, check this condition. 1, check this. 2, check this condition. So we can probably just do something like that. So step through a decision list. When true, perform action. Okay. And then after that, check if AP, check if AP is still available. This is our action points, remember. And then if so, go back to the top, repeat or end turn. Okay. So this is basically the thought process that we're going to go through. And then what I want to do is in this class is have all the functions that everything's going to need. So every enemy is going to need to know where all the players are. It's going to need to know that it has to step through all these actions. And then it needs to know, hey, I still have action points left. Step through this again. Self-call itself, recursively call itself. And then if it says, hey, I'm all out of action points, I need to signal my turn's over. So we can start working on this here. So what we need to do is, let's see here. How do we want to start with this? Let's start with our function of find players. Function, because that one's easy. Find all players. Find all players. Right. And that's just easy for player in, excuse me, and get tree, get nodes, and group players. Okay. Oops, not colon. So then we're going to need a variable of players, and that's going to be an array. And that's going to be an array of, well, for right now, we're going to do character body 2D, but I think we're going to probably change that. Okay. Oh, so first thing we want to do is we want to blank out the player list. Players equals boom. Because if a character dies between the two turns of this monster, we don't want still to be looking for an old instance of a player. So we're just going to circle through this, grab all the players that are available, and then we'll step through each one, and then we can just do players.append, and then we can append the player. Okay. Okay, so this is a good question. Am I being redundant in this? Do I need to do this for loop? Because is this just going to return an array? Can I just assign players to this? Yeah, it's an array. It's an array of nodes. Yeah, for safety reasons, we probably want to make sure that they're of the right type. Let's leave it like this for right now, because we may, when we come back to this, oops, wrong buttons here. We may want to have some extra checks in here. So we can say, like, you know, if a player is invisible or something like that, we want to exclude them from the list, so that we're not calculating them into our targeting, you know, for example. So let's leave it like this for a second, because then, and put a note here, possible player status checks. Okay. Because then if they're invisible, or if they're, you know, maybe there's an aggro thing or something like that. So then we need to build it and add in an aggro variable value. Wow. Valuable. Combine variable and value together and you get valuable. Okay. Okay, so let's see. We'll find all the players. And then we're going to set our array, our players array, to the players. Okay, so that would be, you know, locate all the players. So we've got that. We then need to have a function that's going to step through our decision list. Okay, so function. Let's see. What do we want to call that? Probably. Trying to think of a good name for something like this. I don't want to just call it decide, but function run logic. Yeah, let's just call it run logic. Okay, and so when we run the logic, first thing we want to do is we want to find all the players. So we'll call that, and we'll get that populated. Okay, and then how about if we spell logic right? There we go. And then what we also need to do is we need to do we want to have, and this is where proper design is going to save us some time going forward. Do we want to have each one of these logic steps or logic actions to be like an exportable resource? So then we can just say, you know, check the distance and attack if next to each other, and then we can reuse that logic in multiple enemies. This might be a range check logic or something like that. So if we create them as resources, then we can kind of mix and match between different ones, because some might be we're keeping the game simple, but I'm kind of thinking scope wise, you know, if this becomes early access and then we need to grow it into more, then I want to make sure that I have all the building blocks in place. I just have to actually add in the content. So that's what I'm trying to think through on this. So if we do that, and then we do, hold on, I just want to make sure it wasn't like, no, okay. I think my mom misdialed me. There we go. Okay. Okay, let's see here. That was weird. Yeah. My live view of the stream is a little bit behind me. Okay. So I was thinking here, we want to go through, we want to check the first. So if we do an export var, this is going to be a, do we want to call it logic steps? What do we want to call it? Yeah, let's call it logic steps. Steps. And that's going to be an array. Logic step. Let's make a class called logic step. And I'm just trying to think. Again, we're doing this stuff on the fly. So let's go back here to our core components. Let's create a new folder. And what do we call this again? We called this monster logic. So monster logic. Okay. Then in monster logic, let's create a new script. And it's going to be called logic step. And we're going to extend it as a resource. Okay, create. Okay, class name logic step. Okay. And then what we need to do, we need to export var. We got to give it something besides name. Name's a reserved word in Godot, so we don't want to use name. So we want to call it action name. Action name. Let's stick with our branding that we're using for other stuff. So we stick to our action name, and then within the action is we're going to have to define, and again, this is going to be more framework because this is the class definition. And then when we build the resource, we can put all the other stuff in there. So what do we want within our logic step? I don't know. Good question. So for right now, let's just do logic step. And then let's create a new resource using the logic step. LGIC, logic step. Here we go. Okay. So this one's going to be, so let's think about it. If we have an orc with just like a sword, we need to say he can only attack an enemy if he is adjacent to him. So let's create a logic step of check range. Yeah, let's do a check. Or do you just want, let's call it melee attack. Okay, so our first choice is going to be a melee attack. So if the player's in close, we'll do melee, melee attack. Okay, let's make, we're in the monster logic. Yeah, melee attack. Okay, so I save it. Melee attack. Okay, save that. And then we'll create a second one. We'll come back and repopulate these after. But let's do another logic step. This one's going to be called move. We'll just call it move. Okay. Save. And then that one will just be move. Okay. And then we have melee attack, move. Let's create just one more. Create new resource. And this will be called a ranged attack. Okay. Okay, save. There we go. Okay, so then we come up here. We have our decision engine. We have logic steps here. We can have all three. So let's do, whoops. We have to go back into, not logic step, where is it? The script, here we go. There, now we save that. Now, if we come back to this, now we should be able to add the element, edit. Why is this not allowing me to add the logic steps? Oh. Didn't we just define logic step? Logic step, copy. And come back over here to our decision engine. There we go. Okay, there we go. Now it's working. Okay, so we do a quick load here. We're gonna, first thing it's gonna try to do, the Orc's gonna try to do a melee attack. If it can't do a melee attack, then it's gonna do a move. Okay, so that's gonna be our logic step that we're gonna go through here. So we're gonna check for the melee attack. If I can't attack, move to the next step, which gives me the move step. So we're gonna run through our logic here. And then what we're gonna do is we also need a variable here of its action points. So do we just do it var action points? Action points int equals 2. For now, we're just going to set this up. Action points equals 2. Oh, that's not where we want to do that. So right here at the beginning of run logic, action points equals 2. So we'll reset that every time. Okay. And then here, while action points greater than 0. I don't like doing it this way, but I mean, it makes... No, I don't think I want to use action points here. I want to do... We're going to run the logic. We need to... Let's do a function called find valid step. Okay. And then here, let's do for, oh, you know what I could do? Right here, I can do for I in action points, find valid step. So then I'll go through each time, and then when it's done, we'll do an await, logic complete. Am I doing this? Is again, we're doing this kind of on the fly here. Await logic complete, which we haven't defined yet, because we're going to run this through. We're going to come in here. We're going to find all players. We're going to execute. Oh, you know what? Instead of doing await logic complete, let's do an await here on this step. So, oh no, wait. Let's do find the next step and then an await execute. EXECU execute step. Okay. So then what we can do is we can add the pause in to make sure we wait until it finishes moving before we then try to either move again or execute our attack. Okay, so let's come up here. Let's add in our function find valid next step. Okay, and then we're going to go for step, and what we call these again? We call these logic steps. For step and logic steps begin, and then what we want to do is each one we're going to return. For right now, I'm just going to return false. No, I don't want to do a return. I want to do for step and logic steps. We need to do in the logic step. We need to test if the requirements are true. So if step dot requirements equals true, we'll just do that for now. and then we can return the step. Okay, and then, so we want this to return a logic step. Okay, so then what we can do here, if we do this, put that in nested like that. Okay, and then if we do execute step, function execute step, this is going to take in the logic step. Okay, return. Okay. Up here, we still need a path. I think we're missing right here. We need to return null. Can we do null? Yeah, we can do null. That's fine. If step equals null, just print an error for right now. Step not found. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Let's go through here. For right now, we come in, we run the logic, we set our action points because this is going to be at the beginning of the turn phase for the orc. We set our action points to 2. We find all the players. So we set up our player array here, players, so we can figure out where they all are. We append them all in. We wipe them out first, then append them. Okay, and then we do, for each action point, we execute the step. We have to find the valid step first. So find valid step. Actually, do I want to break it apart for testing? Yeah, let's break it apart for testing. Next step equals, and then I'm just going to do this just for testing. I know it's a waste of a variable, but I'll do it this way. Okay. And then this is end turn. I gotta look up and see what we do the end of the turn. I forget already. Okay, so we go through, we step through our valid step. We check in that, and we see if the requirements equals true. So this is going to be a function. So we're going to copy that. We're going to come back into our logic step. And we're going to define here. It's going to be a function, requirements, and then that is going to be a Boolean. And by default, we'll return. By default, we'll return false. Okay. So now this, because we changed the base of this, we have to make sure we go into each of our resources and just resave it, because if we don't, it's not going to get that new function. This is the downside to doing it the way I did it. You normally want to define all your base script first before you define the other. It's most likely what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create, I forget the programming term for this, but basically I'm creating the framework in this, and then I'll create a second specific script for like ranged attack, but it's going to have the same the names of all the functions, so it's already going to be established, and then we're just going to overwrite them as we go. There's a programming name for that stuff. I want to say it's like polymorphism, or it's not quite polymorphism. It's something along those lines. But basically where we make sure everything's already defined, and then we can overwrite the functions. That coffee's all gone. Okay, let's get some water. Make sure we don't lose my voice here before we get too far. This feels like it's going to be a 5-foot stream where we don't get as far as we want to. Okay, so let's see here. So requirements, that's going to return false. Let's go back to our decision engine. So if it, oops, didn't mean to do that. If it equals true, return the step. If not, keep going to the next one, and then return null. Okay. So let's do, yeah, this is fine. Actually, yeah, no, this is fine. We're going to slowly step through all of our logic here. Okay, so we got the locate. We're stepping through our decision list. When it's true, we're going to perform an action. I have no idea who this is. One moment. Nope. That is political spam. Don't need that. Okay. Then we check if AP is still available, which is in here. So we await. If there's still another action point, do it. And then we need to end turn. Okay. So what we need to do is, if this is an orc, right now when we call the button, we're going to end the turn. So up here, what are we using to end turn? End turn button. End turn button. End turn. Boy, that's simple enough. End turn. Here we go. We're calling the combat manager next turn. We call this turn over. Okay. So if we just call the game board and say end turn, that should be good for this testing. So here on end turn, we're going to call the game board, which we used a reference this way. Yeah. So if we do this, copy that. Again, this isn't going to be final. This is just, we're going to come back and make this work properly. Okay. So now it's going to run through the logic. It's going to wait the next step or execute step. So here we need to, do I need to do something here that creates like a timer or something? I don't think so. Okay. Okay, so let's go into our orc. Let's bring in the decision engine here. Okay. And so when this orc, it's their turn and they activate. So here's ready. Here's the setup. Are we calling activate only on players? Or are we calling activate? No, we're calling activate on orcs too, because we're getting them to change colors. So on this next turn, turn manager, current node, turn actor, new turn emit, set the action points on the current actor. So where are we? Oh, right, because in the character body, we actually have it activate right here. But that's only, oh no, wait, that's only called when, it shouldn't be called activate because this is only happens when we move. Did we change it in the combat manager? Well, where did we change the modulate? Because that's going to be the place where we want to do this. The same place we did the modulate. I think that may have been in the game board. Game board. End turn, advanced turn. Oh. Where did we put the update active? Here we go. If current actor, set the modulate here, change to the new actor, activate the current one here, and then let's do if current actor dot is in group monsters MON monsters. And then what we want to do is we want to do the current actor dot decision engine dot run logic, like that. Okay, so now when we come back in here, we have our orc, we have the decision engine here, and then we have the logic in here. So we're going to call run logic. We're going to set up our action points here. where it's going to find all players. It's going to go through. It's going to await, and then it should end turn. In theory, because these are all going to return null or false. It's going to go through. It's going to check the requirements. It's going to be say false, return, false. Okay, and then it'll just return null. And then if it's null, it's going to say step not found, which should then finish this, which should then move on. So we should get 2 of these for each orc on their turn, and then it should end their turn. Let's find out. That's what I thought. Okay. Non-existent end turn in base node 2D. Oh, because we need to go back one more level. Because we need to go back. We need to go orc, actor, game board. Oops. Okay. Okay. So right now it is. Oops. You know what? Let's make it easier to see. Turn off navigation. Okay. So now it's the wizard's turn. So we move the wizard up to here. Oh, we got some prints that we want to get rid of. End the turn. Rogue's turn. Barbarian's turn. Okay, so it jumped through the monster. So let's go back through our output here and let's just double check and see if we have. Yep, there we go. Okay, so each time it went through the monster, here we go. Step not found, step not found, step not found, step not found. Not found, not found. Okay, so it is going through our decision engine. So now we've got that logic looped in. So we're starting to go through that stuff. Okay. I really don't like... I want this to tie back to the actor to signal my turn is over. So instead of calling the end turn on the game board, I want that to come from the monster itself. This is one of those steps where you think about it, you go, do I do this now or do I do this later? Because I kind of, right now it feels like we're really shoehorning, popsicle sticks, duct tape and popsicle stick solution. Because what I want to do is go back and write an actual base enemy class. Well, actually, what I'd like to do is I want to create a base character class. So for any, monster or player, and then the players and monsters will inherit that class, and then have a base enemy class and a base player class, and then have each of the classes inherit from that. But that's in Milestone 4. So we want to just get the rough logic working here, and then Milestone 4 will make it all pretty, so to speak, in code lingo. Okay, so let's see here. Trigger the logic, locate all the players, go through all this stuff. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're executing the step. Let's do this first. Find if the step is valid. Find valid step. Okay, so then if we go into, we're calling this function requirement. So let's do attack. Let's focus on the attack. So if I want to create a new script, monster logic, let's create new script, and let's call it melee attack. Okay, and that is going to inherit what do we call this? Logic step. Okay, create. Okay, so this is going to extend logic step, and then so we have the function requirements. Okay, and then what we need to do for this one is we need to loop through players and see if any are in range. Okay. Not pass. Return return false. So by default, we're going to return false unless we find a player in range. Okay. So let's see here. So what do we need to do? What are we passing in our logic step? We have nothing here. So what we need to do is we need to pass in a requirement, which is going to be our self. Trying to think about how to do this because we need to keep this function universal. So if I pass in players here, it's going to be passing in players everywhere. So yeah, let's do an underscore here, players. Okay, and that's going to be an array of, we'll just make it an array for right now, just to make it safe. Okay. Save, and then we go back into our melee attack. And this, we're going to pass in underscore players. That's going to be an array. Okay. I normally would define this, and I probably will once we actually build the character base class, and then it'll come in as whatever we define them as, actors, players, something like that. So for underscore player, no, let's just do for player. Do we want to call it player? Do we want to call it for? Let's call it character. And no, let's just do player. That's fine. Player and players. What we want to do is we need to check. So we meet the requirements, and then we're going to execute the step. Okay. And then when we execute, we're passing back the step. So we're going to have a second function that's going to be called like execute. So do I need to pass the array? That's the question. Do I need to pass the array, or are we going to know from the decision engine? The decision engine's already going to have a list of the players. So we probably don't need to pass in the array because that's going to exist in the decision engine. So we can just pull in the decision engine. Because this is all going to be running under the decision engine. So how can we reference? I don't think we can. I think we still need to pass it because this is all going to be not in the tree. It's going to be an extra bit of code. Okay, anyway, let's go through the players. Let's just do if player dot, oh no, we want to do if global position. Oh wait, we need, crap, we need a reference to the orc too. So we need a reference to the enemy. Okay, let's just write down the logic so we don't forget. If global position dot distance 2, and then we're going to look at the player dot global position POSITION underscore is less than or equal to 8 because that's the size of our tile. Then we can return true. Return true. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back here and just think about this one more time. Because we also need to know where our enemy is. So we need to pass the enemy. So we need to say we get the players, and we got, actually let's pass in first is the, what's this thing called? It's called a we called it monster, so we'll call it a monster. We'll just call it node 2D for right now, and then players an array, and then monster. Okay, so we'll do this like that. Then we'll come back to our logic step. We'll add in the monster That's going to be a node 2D. Okay, boom. So we save that. Okay. That's all good. Save this. Melee attack. We'll double click move. We'll save move. It's fine. Range attack save. Fine. Okay. So in melee attack, when we run through melee attack, we're going to check to see if the distance is less than 8. If it is, return true, else return false. Okay, so if we come back into our decision engine, here we go. So now if it returns true, we're going to return that step, which is that resource file. And then we're going to execute the step. So then here, we're going to take the step.execute. Okay. We'll do that. And then here, when we pass in this, we need to pass in the get parent, because we need to pass in the orc. And then we need to pass in the players, which do we just call it players? There we go, players. There we go. Okay. Let's just put our spacing here to make sure we can read it nice and well. Okay. Okay. So we're doing that step. You know, if it is true, then we're going to execute the step. So if we come back into our logic step, we're going to basically do the exact same thing here. We're going to function, and this is going to be called execute. Execute, we'll do monster players, and then we'll say whether or not it's true that it executed successfully. Okay, so then we come back into melee attack here, and we do a function execute, and we're going to use the same. We're going to use the same line here. Execute, bool. Do we need to return? I don't think we need to return a... For safety, we should probably return a Boolean, but okay. So let's do that, and let's just return true. That's fine. Okay, so what it should be now is, if we go through all this, the melee attack, if a orc is adjacent to, this is only going to work 8, so a diagonal is not going to return true, but up and down, that should return true. We're at 0, 0. A diagonal top left, that might return true. I don't know. Well, we'll find out. But that should fix that stuff. So let's just make sure we don't have any other errors. Nope, that looks good. Okay. Execute call. Step.execute. Oh, right, because I need to pass in the this stuff. There we go. Yeah, I forgot to hit stop before I... There we go. Okay. Cannot execute on base null. Oh, right, because we need to return here. There we go. Okay, so let's see. None of our orcs have gone yet. Our wizard's up. So if I move, not wizard, cleric. So if I move him here, then when this orc goes, he's going to have 2 possible that he can actually attack. Okay, we're just going to end him there. Okay, so number 4 went, which is this guy. He had no one next to him, so he was not found. Okay. Orc, this guy. It says his step not found. Not found. Not found. Right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. That should not be. That should be returning true. Let's see if it's actually executing. Let's check the requirements here in our melee attack. Copy this. Let's just print. We'll print this out. Okay. So each time it goes, it should print out its distance here. Okay. It is not printing out its distance. It's jumping straight to step not found. Okay. Decision engine. Find valid step. Our requirements. Did we mess up our requirements? Let's go back and look at our melee attack. Right here, for player and players, return true. This obviously isn't executing. Why is that not executing? It doesn't make sense. Why is that not executing? End turn. Oh, did I mess up? Let's go back to the Orc decision engine. Melee attack and then move. Oh, it's going through. Okay, let's take another look here at the decision engine. Let's step through this. So right here, let's put a break right here. And let's see if it tells us what the find valid step. Find valid step is going to return a null. Okay, so let's just see what happens here. Okay, so here's our break. Nope. Invalid access. What did I do wrong? Oh, because I'm running on Orc, not game board. Grr. Okay. Okay, so right now, cleric, end turn. And his turn. Okay, so now we're at the breakpoint. Okay, so let's take a look here. Let's see what next step. Next step is showing null. Okay, so why is that saying null? Execute, find next step. If step.requirements, okay, so we're calling that here. So let's do a breakpoint right here. Okay, and let's see what our step is equal to. Our step is equal to this object right here, melee attack. Okay. So did we already did 0 melee attack. Okay. Logic step. Oh. That's what we did wrong. Okay. So if we go back here to our melee attack, we did not update this. This needs to become melee attack GD. There we go. That helps. Let's try that again. Okay. So let's end turn here. Boom. Breakpoint. Step equals this. Melee attack GD. Okay. So if we move, let's move on. Here's our break. Our next step is still saying null, but we did find our ranges here. So our closest one was 12, which is player 4, which is our wizard. Okay, so we are running through that script now. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. What we need to use is we have the position to cell. And so if we're going to talk about cell spacing, we need to use our position to cell instead. So let's think about this. Okay. So if we come back over here, we have Where's our melee attack? Here we go. So instead of using our distance 2, we can do we can do a player cell. Should we just do first off find our closest player? No, we don't want to do that. We want to get the A star path to determine who's actually closest. So what we want to do, we're going to target that. We need to find out our path distance via the A star. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take the grid and we use character body here. How did we do in the input when we calculate the path? So we find, here's the position. We use the mouse position. This is the global position. We convert that to a local. And then from the local, we change it to the map. And then we get the tile data that way. Okay. That's well, we don't need to do that because we already know we're doing it this way right here. Player.current cell. Okay, so we do player.current cell, monster.current cell, and then we can just find this current cell. Okay, we can just use this. Move points, and then we can get the count of the move points. So then we can find it via A star how far they are away. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so let's go back over to our this. And so when we calculate our distance, whoops, that's not where we want. Melee attack, here we go. So let's take this and do this. We're going to just print out the result. We're not going to use move points. We're going to print this. And what we want to do is we want to do the monster. Monster dot. Did we call it grid? What did we call it in the monster in orc? We called it. Yeah, we called it grid. Perfect. Okay. Monster.grid, get point path, and then what we want to do is we want to do player dot current cell. Right? How do we do this again? What's the get point path is oops, nope, character body. So we take where we are to where we want to go. Okay, so let's go back here. Melee. We should probably close some of these scripts out. So that's going to be where we're going to. So let's take that out. And then we are going to do underscore monster dot current cell, comma player current cell. Okay. So this, let's go ahead and just get rid of that. That's going to tell us the A star point path. We want to see the size of this. So this will get us the actual point path. And then if I just do dot size, that I think should just give us the size of the array. Okay. Okay, so let's see. We got him first. Let's end his turn. End his turn. That's fine. Okay. Get point path in null. Okay. So the monster is not being passed in. How's the monster not being passed in? Monster is an object right here. It's an orc. Monster. Oh, it has no grid set up yet. So this is trying to execute before we set up the grid. The grid should have already been set up. Why is this not? Because we already had the turn. character, player, their turns over. Okay, so that should all be set up. Why is the grid non-existent? Because we do have the here's the monster, but the grid is null. Why is the grid null? Let's just do a get tree. No, process. No, let's do physics frame. Physics. Oh wait, we can't do that. This is in resource. I can't do that. So why is that not existing yet? Are we? So in the orc, on ready, we're establishing the grid. So the grid should be there. When we and then when we set this up, I mean, look, we're already setting it up. We've got these positions, current cell, and their global positions. So we've already got that set up. We don't have the grid yet, according to this. Do I need to set this? Let's copy this and let's do. Set it. Whoops, set it here. Is that going to fix that? No. Why is it saying that the grid doesn't exist? We're calling the grid. We're setting it up. Do I need to do it that way? Nope. Didn't think so. Do I need to pass in? Let's just put this back the way it was. It's fine. Let's think about this. Think about this. What's going on here? We execute the step. We send in the parent, which in this case is the local here. Let's stop the game. So it is the orc. We're sending in the orc. And the orc has a grid. We've defined the grid when he was readied. So why, when we pass in the melee attack, we're saying the monster here, get point path, is there like an A-star grid update I need to run? Let's look at the character body. Character body, let's see here. So when we bring it in, set point solid, start move, position to cell, setup, grid equals grid. Well, that's fine. That's when we do the setup. Okay, well, let's go back over to the orc and we'll just change it how I did have it. There. Grid equals grid. Okay, so that's in setup. So that'll make that at least the same. Current cell, target cell. We already did that. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, but there's no other like A-star update or anything. I mean, it's just here, grid, dot. And the grid, it's just an A-star grid. We're only changing the points to solid if there's a monster there. What am I missing? That it's probably obvious, but I am not there. Now that's the old error. Run the new error. We're stepping through. We got the game board tracker, game board again, decision engine, decision engine. We're stepping into this. We run melee attack and we say print monster grid, get point path. Well, let's just see if the grid actually exists. I mean, I know it doesn't because I just saw it in the inspector, but let's just see. Yeah, null. Why is the grid not existing when we pass in the monster? So when we go back to the decision engine, we're sending in the parent, which is the orc. Decision engine, we're sending in the orc. Why? Coming in, here's the monster. Monster is an orc, but it has nothing here. So if we come in here, here's itself. Let's go back to should we just do a like here when we set this up, we should just do a variable monster. Oops. So then when we do the execute or run logic, we can just do monster equals get parent. And then we can just send in here, instead of sending get parent, we can just send in monster. Because monster. So if we send in the monster, same with this. Well, it is obviously sending it here, but it's not sending it here. Oh, I mean, it is sending it because we are getting the monster in the thing. Oops. Okay, and it's not getting the grid. Why is it not getting the grid? Because when we go to the previous here, okay, or decision engine here, okay, and then that is, where's our profiler? Decision engine, we have monster here as the object. That has no grid. Okay, which monster are we? I don't know. 575. So if we go back to the game board, and we look at our remote, we look at our monster. Which one's 575? There we go, this guy. And we have no grid here. Does any of these have a grid? Orc has no grid. He has no grid. He has no grid. No grid. Okay. So it's not a problem with that logic. It's a problem with when these guys are getting spawned, they don't have a grid set up. So even though we're pointing the grid here and set up, we're pointing it to the actor, the game board, A* grid. How are we doing this for the players? Players, grid. Okay, here's grid. When we do setup, we're passing the grid via the setup. Oops. So do I want to keep doing that with the... Yeah, why don't we do it that way? So then the monster spawner can actually pass the grid in. So let's go to the monster spawner. New orc setup, and then we can pass in the grid, which would be the... So if we come down here, we do spawners, and then the spawner has the game board, so that we can pass in how come this has a game board reference object? Get parent. Oh, right here. Get parent. So if we do get parent dot A* grid, right? So we have monster spawner. Oh, we need to do two get parents there. Get parent, get parent. Oh, wait. No, because we have this, the spawners. Oh, we don't have a script assigned to the spawners, do we? No. Okay. Yeah, so the monster spawner will then call the parent, which is spawners, which will then call the parent, which is the game board. Okay, and then pass in the game board's A* grid. Okay, so if we do that, we come back to the orc. Orc file. When we set up here, this is going to be underscore grid. Okay, and that's going to be an A* grid. Okay, and then here we can just do underscore grid. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, so right now, if I come back here, and let's just look at monster spawner. No, we want to look at the actors. Actors, orc. Grid, still null. But if we look at the player does have a grid. So what is not pulling the grid properly? Doesn't make any sense. So I come down here. Let's look at remote. Let's look at spawners. Monster spawner here. We have... Did I give it a... Monster spawner. Here we go. I called New York setup, but I did not give it a... I just called get parent A* grid. What if I just do this? This is a dumb idea, but let's try it. Okay. Now if we look at the orc, now we have a grid. Okay. Now I'm trying to remember what we were doing. Oh yeah, we were testing the melee attack. Okay. Okay, so let's end turn for him. End turn for him. Okay. So we jump through. Okay, here we go. So this we said 4 3 4 3. Okay. And then his turn is over. Okay, so we got the actual distance there. Okay, so that was the end of character. Where we go? There's the end of the player character. And next one went 5 4 3 5 6 5 5 4 6 5 5 4. Okay, so we did not calculate that properly. Because this guy right here, which I believe is the first orc. Yep, he's the first orc. He should have been... No. Where is the orc? Orc. Character body, character body, character body. Have I not... Okay, where is the orc? Oh, here we go. Orc. Here we go. So that's this guy right here. And he's saying that he is 4 3 4 3. Okay. Let's go back and see what we're looking at here. We don't need to print this grid because now we've found the grid problem. Excuse me. Get the point path. Oh, this is how many steps. But that still should not be that many. It should only be one. So for each one of these, we check the current cell, and we're going to go to the player cell. These should all be like one step. Why are we getting that many? Because we're not changing them to solid points at this point. We are... Do I have to do... What else could we do? Let's think of a different way we could do this. Let's see. If we do... So if we take the player's cell, let's find... We find the closest... How come this distance is not calculating properly? Okay, let's change this slightly. Let's do a print. Let's print the current monster cell, and then let's print the current player cell. Okay, so let's just look at each of those cells. Let's see what we're getting. Okay, so we're looking here. Go through character 00000001 0010 0010. Okay, so the monster thinks it's at 00. Okay, so that's why we're getting the wrong thing. So our current cell is being calculated incorrectly on the orc. That's where we're falling. Okay, so I'm gonna just keep this, but I'm gonna put this back like it was, like that. And then I'm just gonna put this here for more troubleshooting. Okay, so let's go back to where we are instantiating this. Target cell, current cell equals position to cell, global position. Okay. So when we initiate these, wait a minute. When this game starts, oh, we're running the decision engine right off. That might be part of our problem here. Orc. We set up. Where are we running the decision engine? We don't have it ready. I have run logic. Did we take out the setup here? No, global position and current cell. So when we start this game, let's just clear this buffer out. Okay, what? Okay, so we run the game. So they're in cell 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3. Okay. Okay, and then, so our player's done, and then it was character 90009, which is that one. So this one, okay. So he runs. He says, "I'm in 2, 3, 0, 1, 2. Yep, 2, 3. Perfect." And then the first character is in 0, 0. Okay. Next character is 0, 1. Yep. Next character is in 2, 3. And then the next character is in, or sorry, 1, 0, and 1, 1. Okay. So it's finding those cells properly. Okay. Runs through again. Why did it run through those twice? Oh, right, because each action point. Yep. Okay. So that's right. And now when we go back here, did that await get taken out? Did I accidentally back out too far on Monster Spawner or something? Where's Monster Spawner? No, it's there. Why did that break earlier? Excuse me. Okay, so then in our melee attack, we do this. Monster spawner, or monster grid, get point path from the monster cell to the current cell. We're back to the orcs not having a grid. What did we do? Oh, that's spawners, actors. What did I mess up that caused these guys to not have our grid anymore? We just fixed that problem. Do I need a second one of these just to make this stupid thing work? No. Okay. So now it's outputting. What in... Print underscore monster dot current cell. Okay. And turn. And turn. Okay. So the monster says it was in 2-2. 2-2. So this one. And then said they're each 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay. Okay. So the monster's current cell is correct. Is the player's current... No, the player's current cell was right. Right? Why is our math failing? Because again, yeah, if our monsters go first, it fails. Okay. And turn. Okay. So again, here we go. We got 3, 3, 0, 0. So we're at 3, 3. He wants to get here. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, it's calculating it as 7. Oh, right, because it counts its own square. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So it is 7 to get there. Okay. 6 to get that one. 6, 6. Okay. So that makes sense for 3, 3. Okay. Okay. Next guy is at 2, 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. It takes 4 to get to him. Why does it take 4? It should take 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, wait. Does he think he's in the wrong square? Oh, no. That's this guy. This guy. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay. So that's still, we're not to the orcs that we want to be yet. We want the orc that's in 1, 2. Okay. Where is the orc that's in 1, 2? Here we go. Here's the orc in 1, 2. Okay. So orc in 1, 2 to get to player 4 is 3. Why is it 3 steps? That doesn't make any sense. Wait a minute. What's going on here with the players? Oh, okay. So I have a reference here to the player wrong. Because look, we're doing 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. Okay, so we're never looping down to the next 2 players here. Is that the same on all of these? Did I miss that entirely to start with? 3, 3, that's where it is. 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Okay, so that one went through fine. 00011011. Okay. 00010012. Oh, we're probably hitting that true statement. That's probably why. Okay, so let's go back and look at that statement. We're probably hitting the true statement. That's why it's kicking out before, and that's why it looks funky. So if the global position here, okay, so let's do if this, copy, if this is less than 1, 2, so less than or equal to 2. So then that should return true, and then that should then go into the execute, and here in execute, let's just print melee attacking. So we know that we're getting into this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll fix that after. Okay. So let's end that turn. Boom. End his turn. End his turn. End his turn. Okay. So now everything should have gone. So let's go find all the way back to the top here. Let's look at our output window. Okay, so not found anything. Not found anything here. Our 1-2 guy. This guy right here. Perfect. And he found, here we go. He's melee attacking the wizard. Runs through a second time, 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, melee attacking. Okay. So that's perfectly fine. Okay. No one else was, okay, so now if I do, who are we up here? Let's move him to here. Okay, and then let's end his turn. Okay, so player 1, turn is over. Here we go. This is 3-3, so he's not in range, so he's not going to attack anybody. Okay, that's fine. Let's see. This is Orc 2-3, which is this guy right here. And he found that the rogue is in melee range. Okay, perfect. Okay. Wow. That was a little roundabout way to get there, but we got there. Okay. Let's see here. So we got that. We got that. He's actually attacking. Now what we need to do, though, is we need to call the attack function, the target, for the game board from that execute. So then they can attack that guy. Okay, so let's go back here to our execute. This is going to call monster. Do we have a function? Do we have a function in here? Start attack? No. We have the start attack is in game board. Game board. Where is our ready? We have our attack button pressed, actor attack, actor attack. We're going to select the target. We enable the target mode. Actor.target selected as target.connect target selected. Okay, going through all this, did we break our attack? Oops, cancel. No. Okay, our attack still works. Okay, so when we call game board here, and we call actor attack, we can just call target selected, and we pass in the actor. Okay, so if we call the game board target selected with the actor, if it's a monster or if it's player, attack actor. Okay, so I don't need this because this is still target selected as target is connected. Well, let's just call this target selected. This will be easier for us if we do this. So let's do target selected. So let's omit that from our melee attack. We need to call this is on the game board. So to get to the game board, we need to use the monster. So we need the monster dot what was it again? The orc, we need to get back to the game board, which we use the game board reference as this. Oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. Let's just make it work. We'll get back to making it the proper way later. Let's just get it working. Get parent. Target selected, and then we need to pass in the target. So here we need to find our target, which we have this already. So let's just do should we return a target there? No, we're going to return the scene. We don't need this. Don't need this. Okay. Because we already validated this is true, so we're going to just say here's our target. And target's going to be a node 2D. Okay. Node 2D. We'll make it null for right now. Copy. Okay, and then this, if it's this, we'll say target equals player. Okay. And so what this is going to do by default, we're going to cycle through all the players, and it's going to pick whichever the last one in the player list is that is within 2. So then we omit that. We omit the target. That should start the attack. And then when we do targeted in the game board, do we have to do an await there? Let's go back to our game board and look. Targeted, we do that calls the combat manager attack and it attacks the actor. Okay, let's see if this works. I know we still have that other problem. Yep, got the other problem. Other problem. Okay. Okay, let's just move over here because then he'll be in a good spot to be attacked. Okay, that was 2, 3, 2, 3. So he's not within range. Okay. Who's up? Who is up? The rogue. Let's move the rogue. Okay, so now everybody has a melee target. Okay, and he attacks us. Boom. Okay, what? Oh, right, because they have two. They has 2 actions. Okay. But who killed who? Okay, that went by way too fast. Okay. So this right here, melee attack, targeted player 1. Attack dice 3, defense 1. Okay. 3 and 1. So that orc missed. This one targeted. Player 1 died. Player 4 has died. Okay, so there were 4 attacks. Looks like 2 of them, they all hit. Okay, so what we need to do is we need an await in here to make sure that this turn doesn't run us by. So let's take a look here. Let's go back to our scripts. Execute monster target selected. If we do an await here, I think that's gonna cause problems. Come on, there we go. Okay, so let's just move him down to right there. Okay, so that move there. Okay, why did that happen? Why did it not advance past the end of the orc's turn? Okay. So let's look here. So character 1, 2. It's not going to show us the game board. Okay. So the orc at 1, 2, the orc at 1, 2 attack character at 3, 2. Okay. Melee attack him. We targeted player 4. Here's where we started the combat. We called the combat a second time, targeting player 4. The orc's turn was over. Player 4 has died. Removing player 4. Player 4 has died. Okay. So we ended the turn before the player had officially died. So I think that's where we were messing some things up here. Okay, so let's go back to this. We have this execute. So this has an await, which is fine. But now in our decision, we should also await. So where's our decision? Engine. So we have an await here for the execute next step. So that should be waiting. Let's do a print here. Let's do a monster name plus turn is over. So are we actually awaiting the execute? Yeah. I gotta come back and get that fixed. Let's move you over to here. Okay, so we're attacking this guy. Okay, he's dead. How many people attacked him? Oh my god, every... Error, step not found. That's fine. Step not found. Orc's turn is over. Targeting player 4. That character's turn is over. Melee attack and targeting player 4. That character's turn is over. Player 4 has died. Player 4 has died. Player 4 has died. Okay, so what we have here, we have like an async problem. We're executing our turns, but we're not waiting for the dice to finish rolling. Okay. Let me think here. What are we going to do for that? We need to wait on the dice. So on our dice, let's see, did we put in a signal to say the die is done rolling? No. Let's put a signal roll complete. Let's just add this in. Signal roll done. Okay. And then at the end, so we roll, randomize, final result. So where's our roll? Here we go, roll. So we wait for the animation player to finish, pass back the result, update this, and then we can do roll done.emit. Okay. Because yeah, here's our final result. I did looking into this. We don't need to do this. This does do what I think it does, where it reseeds it every single time you call it, but it can cause some process performance hit. So we're just going to take that back out. Let's see here. So we got all that. We got all this. We got the die face. We're going to signal this. So if we come back into our actor dice pool, here we go. We're going to call the roll dice roll. And then what we need to do for C and get children, C.roll. And then we're going to do right here, we're going to do C.rollDone.connect. And we'll call it count dice. Or count. And we'll just call it done roll. Okay. And then, so then over here, we're going to make this function done underscore roll. Okay. And then what we also do is let's do a var roll count. COUNT int equals 0. Okay. We're going to want to also do that in the here roll count equals 0. Okay. And then here we want to do roll count plus equals 1. Okay. So each time that's called, the roll count will be, we'll get 1 added to it. Okay. What did I, tabs and spaces? Where did I mix up tabs and spaces? I only use tabs. How did I? Oh, there we go. I had the space in front of roll count. There we go. Okay, so when this is done, and await. Okay, and then we're going to do one more signal here. Signal done roll. SIGNAL. Done rolling. Okay, so we're going to do that here. Copy. And then right here, if roll count is greater than or equal to our dice pool, which is pool size. Pool size. Actually, we should just do if it's equal to. If it's equal to pool size, then we can just do, whoops. What we call it? Done rolling. Done rolling. Done rolling to emit. Emit. There we go. Okay, so we're connected to the done roll in the die. So, or roll done. Roll done. Roll done emit. Okay, so let's just make sure that we connect it to the right thing. Roll done. Connect. Roll done. Connect. Done roll. In the done roll, we're going to increase the count here. Once it reaches all the dice, then we can emit done rolling. So then here, instead of this, we're going to just await that signal. And then we'll go through all the results. Okay. So let's just double check that. Oh my God, come on. Stop rolling good initiative, Orcs. There we go. Okay. Okay, so there we go. We did. Did we still end up with the same thing? The orc died. Turn is over. Player 1 has died. Player 1 has died. Should happen before the end of the monster's turn. So, okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. I need to take a break. Oh, looks like someone is at my front door anyway. So I'm going to hold on here. Where do we go? Talking head. So we're going to wrap up for today. I'm going to figure out, I guess, sit down and think through some of my logic here a little bit more. Yeah, it's yeah, this cost me a little bit of time. So I'm gonna go back over here. I'm gonna end my timer for the day. That was an hour and 46 on top of everything else. We're at 24 hours. Dang, this was not where I wanted to end this. But okay, so I'm hoping to do a bonus stream this week. So hopefully we'll be able to, or this weekend. Sorry, I'll get this all wrapped up, and we'll get this working again. So hopefully we'll have the monster AI working properly, and then we'll actually be able to play around and move our players, and then have the orcs move and attack us. So hopefully tomorrow, if everything works out, I'll have another stream. But take a look on the channel. I'll put up an announcement when I plan to go live. So hopefully we'll have that done fairly soon. So without further ado, I bid you all. Without further ado, I'll bid you all a good day, and hopefully